Welcome to one of the most listened to music news podcasts in the world, SGNP, with your host, Darren Sutherland. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, artists, and entertainers about their faith, family, and careers. This is information you will not find anywhere else on radio, web, or in a magazine, but only firsthand on SGNP.
I've even questioned, even if my Lord was near. Many times that old tempter, he says, why not turn around? Welcome once again. It's episode 2 of season 3 of Southern Gospel News Podcast. Darren Sutherland and Arthur, we said last week, what was it, a week and a half ago? We got to get back to where we're on every week because we got some big news coming up. Not going to announce it today, but some big news just happened today that we'll announce. But hey, better than that big news, we've got a guest that we've been trying to schedule for the past 3 years. And
speaking of big news.
Yeah, speaking of big news, and today our guest is going to be none other than Singing News Vice President, Editor, whatever it is with Seawalker Media now, Danny Jones. And
yes.
Man, looking forward to this, Arthur.
I am too. I mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Danny is just really seriously. We talked about having him. He's such a. His hands are so much in our industry that we really wanted him to be a part of the show, and it's great. I'm glad he's finally here.
And let me say this, we could go a lot of different ways with Danny. There's thousands of questions over 25 years, and we're not going to get a chance to ask every single thing you want to know. And if, one of these days we'll do one of these live talks where people can call in and do question and answers. But you know what? Danny is he's a gentleman. He gives us straight answers. He's loved by all the artists. Usually when someone holds a pen or a poison pen in the newspaper business, because I deal with enough writers in my life, for somebody that can't conjugate a sentence without messing it up, I sure do deal with a lot of writers. Danny maintains a relationship with artists that is fantastic. And it's neat. It is neat. And I think folks will enjoy this interview coming up.
Yep. I know I'm going to.
Hey man, before we get out too much and say this, I've got to say this. Very few times in my life in regard to Southern gospel music have I been stunned. Okay. And what I mean by that, Arthur, is yesterday we're recording this show on the 30th day of August, 2021. On the 29th day of August, as we were returning yesterday from doing some running around, I looked down at my cell phone and I see a note that a kid that I'm 51 years old. I knew him from the time he was about 9 or 10 years old. His daddy really was one of my heroes on a local level growing up here. And his daddy was a great singer. And I thought his daddy, Gerald, was Mr. Gospel Music, so to speak, in Georgia. Yeah. But Dustin Sweatman, his son, former Dixie Melody Boys singer, former Mark Trammell Trio and Mark Trammell Quartet singer, passed away unexpectedly yesterday at 38 years old. And the cause of death, I don't really know at this point. But to his wife, Blair, to his mother and daddy, Gerald and Deborah's brother, Tim, his father-in-law, Jeff Nunley, and his wife and son. And again, my heart goes out to Blair, and we know Dustin's in a better place, but selfishly at 38 years old, that one was a hard one to swallow, and it still is, Arthur.
Yeah, it was. It sure was.
So anyway, our heart goes out to him. Check us out, Southern Gospel News Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and our website. We're growing a little bit, and glad season 3 is around. We're going to take a quick break, hear a few messages, hear a song. We'll come back. Danny Jones with the Singing News on SGNP. Hey, this is Darren, and I'm here for my buddy Mike Lindell and My Pillow. That's right, My Pillow. I got to tell you a little secret, and this is a true story. The other day I'm laying in the bed. I looked at Mary and I said, I'm going to get me some new pillows today. She said, what do you need with new pillows? You got them. I said, I got one that's decent. And I didn't know which one it was. I mean, I knew which one it was, and I pulled the cover off of it, and it was only My Pillow. The rest of them were these ones that we bought from TJ Maxx or Target or Walmart or somewhere that just had worn out their welcome. And you know what, guys? I feel like I needed new pillows. And she said, well, why don't you call My Pillow, because you like the one you got there, and tell them what you're looking for, and they'll help you out. You know what? I called, and guess what? They helped me out. They asked me what size I was. They asked me how I slept. Did I sleep on my back or on my side or on my stomach? What felt right? Feathers or, blah, 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 foam. They asked me all these questions. More questions than I ever dreamed about a pillow, and I got my new My Pillow in the mail, and I've slept right. You want that change in your life? It's real simple. 1-800-338-2330. 1-800-338-2330. Use the code word SGNP. That's right, the code word SGNP. And tell them you heard about this special offer. And when you use that code, you'll get a great discount from the folks at My Pillow. I use My Pillow. You should too. 1-800-338-2330. Use the code SGNP. My Pillow, the official pillow and sleep provider of Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Hey folks, you're listening to Southern Gospel News Podcast. That's right, SGNP. My buddy Darien Sutherland and Arthur Rice, they are knocking it out of the park. Listen, check them out. Continue to listen, but be sure to check out Southern Gospel Point of View on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play.
All right, everybody in the house, come on, do this for me.
Oh, I like it already. Yeah! Let have it. Some of these days I'm going home, where no sorrows ever come. We'll soon be done with troubles and trials. Safe from heartache, pain, and care. We shall all that glory share. Ever gonna sit down beside my Jesus? Lord, I'm gonna sit down and rest a little while. We'll soon be done with troubles and trials. In that home. Yes, in that home on the other side. Sit down and rest a little while. I shall behold His blessed face. I shall feel His matchless grace. We'll soon be done with troubles and trials. Oh, what peace and joy sublime in that home of love divine. There we're going to sit down beside my Jesus. Lord, I'm going to sit down and rest a little while. We'll soon be done with troubles and trials. In that home. Yes, in that home on the other side. And I'm going to take that hand with the elder. Going to tell that king a good morning. Then I'm going to sit down beside my Jesus.
And welcome back to SGNP. Darien Sutherland and my co-host, the lead singer of the year, although he hadn't won any awards, and we're going to figure that out today. If we don't figure it out today, we're going to do some under the table stuff and buy some votes. So it'll finally push him over the top, because being nominated lead singer of the year for 26, 27 years, the Susan Lucci of gospel music, Arthur Rice. Arthur, I'm going to let you, good man. I'm going to let you introduce our guest today, because you guys are good friends. Danny and I are friends. Danny and I, believe it or not, folks, I'm just going to throw this out there. A lot of folks don't know this, but Danny and I will text sometimes at the weirdest times at night. And, it's when I'm at least expecting to hear from him, and he's least expecting to hear from me. But anyway, you introduce our friend, my man.
Well, I tell you what, Danny posted a picture of me and Jonathan Wilburn and himself a few days ago on Facebook, and he posted and said that and bragged on myself and Jonathan and the history and everything that we've had in their industry. But I'm telling you right now, Danny has done as much or more than just about anybody in this business for our business, and he does it it's not just a job, it's a love, and I appreciate him so much, and we are so honored to have him on the program. Danny, welcome, pal.
Oh, it's glad to be here. Glad to be here. And let me go back to what Darren alluded to at the very beginning about these odd hour texts. Now, generally, my text in about 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. Darren, somehow or another, his clock doesn't work real well.
No.
So many times I have awakened the next day and found a text that's come in at 4:15, 2:30, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Hey guys, I can't help it that I'm a deep thinker. I think all the time, and I'm always coming up with different ideas and having fun with it. Hey, Danny, just I'm going to ask you, let me just say this, and thank you for coming on. We've worked on trying to get this done for a long time. We finally found the time, and thanks for you guys and the guys at Seawalker Media for making this happen, Scott and Ray and the guys. But, tell us, you're a Georgia guy, okay?
Exactly.
What made you get into writing for the singing news and Southern gospel music? You're talented, my friend. You could have wrote for newspapers. You could have wrote anything you want, Georgia Outdoor News, whatever interests you, you could have wrote for, but you chose gospel music and you stuck with it. Why? What's your background?
Well, I backed into this. Going back to the earliest days, both of my grandfathers taught singing schools across North Georgia. And so gospel music, whether it be gospel music as we define it today, like Southern gospel, or convention style singing, straight from the Redback hymnal, has been a part of my life, since I arrived. And it just grew from there. I was born in Florida. Lived there till I was about 4 years old. My parents returned to North Georgia. And I remember being told several times that the first gospel concert I ever went to, I was 2 weeks old. And I do know that the Florida Boys were on that particular concert for some reason.
Who was singing tenor?
I don't remember it. Well, during that time, it would have had to have been Tommy Atwood, I believe.
Oh,
but from there, I've always had a love of the music. It's just been around. I've been around it all the time growing up. And as I was going out of my high school years into my college years at the University of Georgia, which, by the way, I love that school so much. I spent 7 years trying to get a 4-year degree.
There you go.
The owner of the local radio station in Greensboro, Georgia, his name is Andrew Boswell. And at the time, the call letters were WGRG. He knew of my love for the music, and he had a Sunday gospel program and he was trying to do it all, trying to do the whole day himself. And it doesn't take long to wear you down from that. So he pitched it to me if I would take over, either the afternoon or the evening shift. Ultimately, we wound up bouncing back and forth. So I did that, and I was going to go to UGA for the standard business degree, marketing, that type thing. Along the way, I got to meet a lot of incredible people, a lot of the artists, but a lot of the behind the scenes people like Eddie Crook, people like Bob Crawford, who used to work so closely with Marvin Norcross, Ken Harding, and people like that. And at that particular time, Eddie Crook's Morning Star label and his entire company was just going like gangbuster. The artist roster was Bishops, McCamey's, Isaacs, Wilburns, Dixie Melody Boys, Perry's, just a long list of people that have gone on to become household names in gospel music. But Eddie also had a very successful side of the company that was more in the developmental aspects, the Cedar Hill label, the Harvest label. Dave Wilcox was his radio promotion guru and director of A&R at that time. And it got to the point where Dave could only handle so much. So I started doing independent contracting in radio promotions for Eddie. And in 1991, it worked out where I could move to Nashville, go to work at Eddie's for full time. And it was about that time when Dave moved on to some other things for a while. So I inherited that seat as well. And for the next 4 years, I served as his A&R director and worked in radio promotion. And then a lot of people love the idea of living in Nashville, but it's a difficult city to get away from the music. And that's no slam on the city, but Nashville is so music oriented. It's hard to go to church, to the grocery store, to a movie theater, to a city park even without someone wanting to talk about the business.
Yep.
And so it was difficult to live there. And frankly, my wife and I, we wanted to change. And so all the years that I had worked with Eddie, Eldridge Fox of the Kingsmen had been talking to me, and he always would end nearly every conversation with, "If you ever leave Eddie's, call me." Well, when I left Eddie's, I was really going to step out. I just was a little bit burned out, and really gospel music wasn't on my radar. I interviewed for a few things, got to the final round of interviews, but nothing ever happened. And I came home one day from an interview feeling pretty down. And I told Christina, my wife, that now I just don't know what I'm going to do. It just doesn't feel, like anything's going to happen. And she just looked at me in the way wives will sometimes. Well, that's because God wants you in this. End of statement. Slap you in the face, here you are, done. And Arthur, you've been there. Tammy's told you the same thing many times.
Absolutely.
They put it in perspective so quickly. And the very next morning, Eldridge Fox called while I was out. And when I got back, I found a message from him on my answering machine. And he said, "This is Foxy. I'm mad at you. I told you to call me and call me back." So I called him, and first of all, he gently chewed me out for not calling him when I left. And he said, "I need you to come to Asheville. I want you to come to Asheville, come talk to me." So we made arrangements to do that the following Monday. Got up there, and on the way up there, Foxy was admitted to the hospital. So I walked into the offices over there on Merriman Avenue at the time, and there was Mickey Gamble, Jeff Collins, and a lot of the other people. I just walked up. They had no idea what I was there for. And that's when I found out that Foxy was in the hospital. So they made a couple calls, and Foxy told them to just talk to me a while and see if he would be out shortly. Long story short, he wasn't. And I went back home. 2 days later, Foxy called again and said, "What are you doing this weekend?" I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Well, you're coming back to Asheville." So there I went back to Asheville again. This time he was doing much better, and we sat and talked, and he said, "I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't really have a place for you, but I believe in you, and I believe you have something to offer to gospel music. So here's what I want to do. We'll use you in Horizon. We'll use you in the Kingsman. We'll use you in Crossroads," which was something that Sunlight and Horizon were doing at the time. "Whatever open slot of the day is, that's where you'll go." And I wound up being mostly in Crossroads, and then later Horizon. And that was in March of '95. We moved to North Carolina from Nashville and settled in Candler. And 6 months go by. Christina and my son Gregory, who was just 5 years old at the time, we were literally still living out of boxes. You know how it is when you move; it takes forever to unpack.
Yeah.
And I got a call that Dina Searles, who was managing editor of Singing News at the time, had given her notice to Jerry Kirksey at Singing News. And I had known Jerry for several years by now, and was leaving. Didn't think that much about it. And then a few hours later, Jerry calls and said, we've got a change coming. Is that something that you might be interested in? And, my thought at the time was this, here is Crossroads and Eldridge and all these guys. They've just spent a lot of money to move me over here, and there's a possibility I'm about to leave. And I didn't know what to do. I was a little bit stunned by it, because I had never considered going into journalism. Now, I had written a little bit. I'd done a lot of press releases for the company and things like that, but I'd never really thought about writing for the Singing News. I had done a small article for Olin Witt at the time. He had a paper called the Christian Music News, and I did a little bit of writing for him, but was never really on my radar. About a day or two later, while I was still, learning about this, if you will, Foxy walks into my office and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm kind of between radio calls right now." He said, "Well, come get in the car. Let's go ride around town." And Arthur, you'll remember this. Eldridge had a Mercedes, a black Mercedes that was about as long as the bus. And we rode around Asheville for a while, and all he did was talk and just pour into me. He said, "Look, these kind of opportunities don't come along very often. It's a great company. There's no downside to going there, because you've got the potential to do the things they need. You write well, and all these things." He was really selling me to me, because I've always had a little bit of I don't believe in me as much as some others do sometimes, or whatever that complex is called. But he was selling me to me, and Eldridge was a master at that.
Yep.
And he told me, he said, "I hate to see you go, but if you don't take this, you're crazy. And I will personally come over to your house and box your stuff up and take you to Boone." And so we talked about it further, and I got his blessings to do that. And that was, anybody who knew Eldridge, he was for young people. He wanted them to succeed. He wanted them to find a place in gospel music where they could do well. And it wasn't just limited to being on the Kingsman's bus. It was everywhere: studio, concerts, anything. He just wanted to see people win. So in August of '95, we went to Boone, North Carolina, and here I am a little over 26 years later, still with Singing News, and it's still mind-boggling many times, because if nothing else, I'll always remember this kid from Florida moving to Boone, North Carolina, where skiing is the largest industry, and that first snow that year falling 39 inches.
Wow.
Wow.
Followed by one that was 26 inches. So yes,
Oh my gosh.
it was a culture shock. But,
Arthur, what you got?
That's
Yes.
awesome, man. I've never heard all that story. I mean, I knew part of it, but I'd never heard all of that. That's great.
yeah,
But you're exactly right. That's Foxy, man. That's
yeah, I tell you, it's hard to really put into a box the things that Foxy has facilitated for so many people.
oh man, yeah.
He and Les Beasley of the Florida Boys,
Mhm.
Rex Nealon,
Mhm.
man, a lot of these guys moved behind the scenes to try to help put people in positions where they could not only grow themselves, but also to grow the industry. And that was their ultimate goal. They wanted to see Southern gospel music last well past their involvement. And
Mhm.
I just hope one day I can take let's put it this way. If I could be just a third of the persons that they were in terms of investing into other people, I'll consider my life a success.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome
Yeah,
story.
that's awesome. That's a great story.
Danny, or let's go this direction. Are we losing the background people for young people today in gospel music, or do you see some younger folks in the background that are really helping prop the music up, for lack of a better word? And maybe that's a bad analogy that you prop the music up, but you promoted it day in and day out. I've seen you at concerts, you've traveled. I think you told me one time you've wore 9 Toyotas out or something, going from point A to point B. You're not getting rich. You're making a good living, but are we losing that young person that's behind the scenes, or do you see some coming along that's going to be able to take the baton, so to speak?
That's a very challenging question to answer, because the dynamics of the music have changed so much over the past 30, 40 years. Now, that said, there are some very talented young people who are a part of this. I'll admit, I'm 55 years old. Scott Godsey of Seawalker Media, he's only 35, I think. But there's an example of someone who's got the creativity, the drive, and the fundamental love of the music to want to see it succeed. And then they're out there. There are a lot of people out there. Sometimes it's a little harder for them to get involved, because it doesn't necessarily require as many people as it once did to make this wheel turn, thanks to things like social media, digital stuff. At a record company, for example, it used to take a full team of people to pull off all the promotions, all of the designing of the marketing aspects and that kind of stuff. Well, now you can hire one person to do 4 or 5 different roles. So in that regard, and maybe it's gotten a little bit smaller, but there's still people who love this. Les Beasley told me one time, and I don't mean to always go back to him, but that man had enough wisdom. He dropped so many nuggets of wisdom in people's laps that we'll be finding those things forever. But he said in the 50 plus years that he had been singing at that time, he never sang to a young audience. And by that, he meant this music just keeps going. You grow into Southern gospel music as you mature physically, mentally, spiritually. There's something about this music that appeals to you. My favorite analogy is I have a friend who grew up listening to groups like Petra and all those hard rock Christian groups. And he tells me now, he said, I can't handle it anymore. My ears just won't take it. I got to hear something a little easier. and I found out that that's true with a lot of people. So I think our music is going to last we're all just trying to keep up with today's times and to properly promote it. And that's where we will have to rely on a lot of the young whiz kids, if you will, who come in and understand the digital world and the downloads and all the different things that, most grandparents have their grandkids set up for them. And once we find a way to properly get all of that together, I don't see that Southern gospel music is going to come to an end.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Arthur?
I agree. And I think, for several years there, I was really kind of discouraged a little bit about our industry as a whole, where it was going and what was next and that sort of thing. And I've been more encouraged in the past couple of years, even through this pandemic. I've been encouraged about our industry and our music and the people that are involved in our music, probably as much now as I ever have been. And I think the future is really bright, and we've got some bright kids out there that really that just blow me away at what they know and their love for this music. And I'm excited about that.
And that brings me to a great point. Think about this. Matthew and Carrie Gooch, Karen Peck's daughter and son, both involved with a group, incredibly bright kids. I shouldn't say kids, they're in their 20s and pushing 30 here shortly, but
they're still kids to me and you.
yeah, exactly. But Carrie, she's extremely bright when it comes to marketing and some of the technology that's involved in social media today. She's extremely talented in that. She's got two avenues to walk down that will both benefit Southern gospel music. She's not only a performer, but she also has that behind the scenes aspect. Matthew, he's a budding entrepreneur. He's one of those guys, if he'll put his mind to it, he'll do extremely well. And he's proven that time and time again. Bryce Free, who is one of the sons of Brian Free, another technical, I can't talk today, but another tech guy who's increasingly impressing me every day when I see some of the things that he's doing with gospel videos. 40 years ago, we didn't really have a gospel video like we do now. Now it's become so important to have it on YouTube and other platforms that suddenly we've got to have a technical guy, a technical director, if you will, to pull that together. And that's the roles that are going to have to be filled by a lot of our younger generation, and they are. They're starting to show up, and a lot of it is from the very people whose parents have been involved in this music for a long time. So there is literally a vested interest for those kids to not let the work of their parents fall away.
We're talking about this internet generation and this new social media generation. And when I think about gospel music and I think about the groups that have really embraced this generation and done a great job. And me and Arthur have talked about this before. If Eldridge or Rex were still with us, I'm sure they would make a trip over to a town like Chatsworth, Georgia, and visit with the Ball brothers and see how those guys have propelled themselves basically using social media opposed to using radio. And the same thing can be said for just south another Georgia group, the Jordan Family Band, and watch what those guys have done via social media. Do you see it going that way with a lot of groups coming along, Danny? I mean, print will always be there. Print will always be a big part of it. Digital is now a huge part of it. And guess what? Arthur and I, this is our third year of doing something a little bit different than radio for our P1s, doing these podcasts, making things different. Do you see more groups moving along in that direction? I mean, what's your thoughts?
I think everybody is moving in every direction. Here's why. 40s, 50s, even early 60s. When a gospel group came to town, it was big news. part of that was because of this. There was not a whole lot of other options to occupy someone's attention. You didn't have the video games. You didn't have a lot on television. We had 3 channels, and 2 of them usually somebody had to go outside and turn the antenna. There was not as much demand for a person's attention like there is today. Likewise, we have to look at where our communities are today in terms of their relationship with the church. Church, unfortunately, seemed to have more importance to more people a few years ago than it does sometimes now. We've also seen a change in the direction of a lot of the churches. A lot of the churches are moving, if you will, into that mega church atmosphere where it's a one-stop, if you will. They have the praise teams. They have services for 3 or 4 different styles. They have something going on every night of the week, things like that. There's so much to pull, to grab, to seek for the attention. And we've even cannibalized, if you will, our own way sometimes, because of the church has come up with so many different things to involve people in. Now, circle all that around to this. Because of that, we are now going to have to, more than ever before, leave no stone unturned.
Yep.
It's going to take print. It's going to take radio. It's going to take things like YouTube. It's going to take things like podcasts. It's going to take, yes, even still the poster in the grocery store. You have to do it all now to make somebody say, oh, I need to go to that. It's just, and it's not just our genre. It's all facets of music. It's all facets of life. True. It's just so much out there. You have to find the way to get attention, and that's either by repetition or standing out so bad that, or standing out so much that you can't be ignored.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Arthur, I mean, you've been around this business for years. As an industry person, what does the singers think of the man Danny Jones that writes about them? I mean, what is the respect level amongst everybody? I mean, tell Danny.
Oh, it's great. I think Danny has been able to so well to stay, and I don't mean this kind of funny, but it kind of to stay on everybody's good side. I mean, he just and I don't mean that in a funny way, but it you know what I mean? I mean, everybody loves Danny.
Yeah.
And because everybody knows that Danny is for them. And that means a lot. And you know what I mean? I don't know if I said that right, but that it just means that everybody knows that Danny is pulling for them, and in everything that he does, and that means a lot to an artist. To know that you can pick up the phone and call Danny, and he's whatever he can do to help you be the best that you can be, and to make your group is whatever he can do, and it's not an obligation. It's just because he loves everybody and he loves being a part of it, and I'm telling you, that means a lot. And
No doubt.
I really don't know of anybody else that has done that, and it really is really cool to see. And I applaud you for that.
You're very kind. Yeah, you did land on something that is important to me, and that's seeing the artist win. I mean, I've traveled, like Darren alluded to, a ton of miles in my gospel career, and so I know what it's like for the artist to be in one town the next, and 2 nights later they walk on a platform. Now, where were we at on Thursday? And that comes easier to fall into that trap than most people realize. You know, when you spend most of your life traveling in the dark and cleaning up at a hotel early in the day, trying to find something lunch, run over to the auditorium, do setup, sing, and tear down, get back on the bus and travel at night, it does not take long to lose that little perception of where you are and where you have been. And it's not an easy lifestyle. Yeah, there's a bit of glamour to it, you know, for the artist, that opportunity to sing in some fabulous churches and some big events. You know, in my case, to be able to do things on TV or radio or at a major theme park like Silver Dollar City and Dollywood, you know, stuff like that. Yes, it has that appeal. It does have a little bit of that glamour, but that's only 30 minutes or 40 minutes of a day. And you only have that 120 minutes of a week. The other time, it's tough, and it's tough on families. It's tough on the body. And so to me, it's important to try to set the artist up to win on whatever level, you know, even if it's just a pat on the back, or letting the people know about something that's special that's happened in their lives. You know, that's all I really want to do. I want to see everybody win. And I want to see these guys who have invested so much of their life into this music. I want them to enjoy the journey while they're on it. I don't want any of these folks sitting in a rocket chair at age 87 looking back and having regrets. I want all of them to feel like I made a difference. So if there's some way that I can build them up, some way that I can boost them a little bit, that's all I really want to do. My big regret in this business is something that I can't fix. And that is, we're limited to just a few pages every month. We are limited to just a few hours of radio every month. We only have so much TV exposure that we can do. This industry, even though it's small, it's huge. When you start trying to work in every individual, every group, the time goes by so quickly. So that's my regret. If we could figure out a way to expand it to where we can include everybody all the time, then I would be one happy camper.
Danny, who was an artist or group out there that has shocked you in a positive way more than anybody else? And what I mean by that question is, you saw them the first time, you said, man, they're good. But then they grew to heights that you never dreamed, or you seen them do things that you really never thought they would, or, you know, just shocked you. Like that rookie that comes up in baseball that all of a sudden is Hall of Fame worthy. In 25 years, there's got to be a couple of individuals or a couple of groups that you just look back and say, man, they really gave it their all. They're great artists, great people, great spiritually. Who are some of those folks?
Oh, wow. That's tough. Because I can sit here and think of things that, say, Karen Peck has done.
Yeah.
In that same time frame. Then I can turn around and say, okay, here's a list of things that Arthur and the Kingdom Heirs have done, same time frame. Booth Brothers, Ernie Haas. But then you go back and look at this. Ray Dean Reese, in his mid-80s, is still on the bus every night.
Yep.
You know, there are so many victories in all of these groups that it's hard to find something.
Pick out one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard to pick it out. I guess if I had to narrow it down to one thing, it might have to be the Booth Brothers. And here's the reason why I say that.
I would agree with that.
The reason why I say that is this. There's not a 1-4-1-4 song in their repertoire. Not one. the stuff that makes quartets and a lot of traditional family groups, you know, that their core style, if you will. The Booth Brothers have always been slightly, and I hate to use the word progressive because that really doesn't describe it, but they've been different in their structures. have a lot of that Gatlin brother tone. They have a lot of the Alabamas, the all those different factors come into their structure. And as we all know, sometimes Southern gospel audiences are tough audiences. They know what they like and they're vocal about it. At the same time, they can, if there's something they don't like, they can be vocal about it. The Booth brothers have a little bit of what I call the Teflon effect. They brought in a sound that was not very traditional Southern gospel music, but they managed to win the audiences over. And I'll tell you how they did it. They stood there and they loved on the people. And by that, I mean, they took time at the record table to spend time with the artist. They were also very wise in their song selection. If you have a great song that's biblically based, very solid, and you can present it to an audience in a manner that it gets past the ears and into the heart, that audience will lock in with you and everything else that you do. And they mastered that early. And I think that's probably probably one of the neatest things I've seen. They're a 30-year overnight success story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice story.
Yeah.
Arthur, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. And Danny, man, thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us and sharing some stuff I never heard, man. It's great. And maybe somebody else hadn't heard all these stories. Be encouraged. And I just want to thank you for everything you've done for this industry, behind the scenes, stuff that has been seen, stuff that hadn't been seen. And I appreciate your life and appreciate you loving on everybody.
Well, you're very kind. I appreciate that. Like I said, it's Southern gospel music is a family. And I've said that many times. Some days are maybe not quite as good as others, but at the end of the day, we have each other's backs. And that's one thing that's carried Southern gospel music since James Devon put the first group on the road in 1910.
You know, Danny, we got to go, but you know, people's going to email me. They're going to ask me, "Hey, Darren, why didn't you ask Danny this? Why didn't you ask Danny that?" That's because Danny's been doing this 25 years, and there's no way we could, you know, whittle everything down to 30, 45 minutes and ask you. So we'll ask you to come back again, but I'll ask you the same question I asked Paul Howell, the late great Paul Howell, when we talked to him. How does it feel a little uncomfortable to be on that side of the microphone opposed to the side that Arthur and I are on today, asking you the questions instead of asking the questions yourself?
A little bit. And the reason why I say a little bit is I'm very uncomfortable talking about myself. I've spent a quarter century trying to talk about others.
Bragging on everybody else. That's right.
But yeah. I just, I don't take what God has gifted me with lightly. I know that life is very fleeting. You know, we all lost a mutual friend yesterday at a very young age.
Oh man, stunned.
And yeah, so I guess in a way I have just many times just deflected as much attention away from me when there's been that opportunity to try to put it on somebody else, because if God has given me a ministry, it would be this. There are a lot of talented people who are carrying a very precious message. And that message can be delivered in a fun, bouncy song, or it can be delivered in a song that, will go straight for the heartstrings. But these artists, these songwriters, they are carrying a story that no man could have ever written. They're carrying a message the only message that can potentially take an entire universe to a better place. And to me, my responsibility in this whole thing called gospel music is to whatever I can do to provide a platform for them to get that message out. That's what I need to do.
Good stuff.
Great.
Good stuff.
Great.
Well, I'll brag a little bit about you. You're a future Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Not
Yeah,
only,
I don't know
not
about
on, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to talk to my friend Jackie Patillo. You're not only a Southern Gospel Music Association Hall of Famer in the future, you're a Gospel Music Association Hall of Famer in the future. There's not a doubt in my mind, because it takes people like you to keep this thing going. It takes people like you to keep people like me talking about it. You know, we may agree, we may disagree, but we love what you write. We're P1s. We hinge on your every word. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. I'm sorry that it's taken us 3 years to get this done, but man, I mean, we could go another 2 hours, another 2 or 3 shows. We'll call you back at another time and get you on if you don't mind again. But Danny, we appreciate you, my friend. Fair enough.
Sure, buddy.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Before we get out of here, tell everybody about Danny Jones' podcast. Tell everybody about the Singing News, how they can get to it. Tell everybody how they can find out more information, as the Singing News is in an incredible growth mode. And Arthur and I will have an announcement in the coming weeks about how we're going to get to be just a small part of that potentially. But hey, just let everybody know, Danny.
Well, we'll talk about the magazine first. Singing News, you know, Mr. Whitfield started it 1969. Who would have thought that a print publication would still be thriving 50 plus years later? But we're still going to mailboxes every month, and people are just, you know, if you're a Southern Gospel fan, it's still one of the best ways to keep up with what's going on. It's very feature based. So it's
Reading
very
mine cover
simple.
to cover every month.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that was not a paid testimonial, by the way.
No, that's right.
That's a free spot right there, folks. Absolutely free.
Right. But calling 800-527-5226 is a great way to subscribe, or you can go to singingnews.com. There is a subscription link there. And then the podcast that you were referring to is called The Fourth Page. Now, previously I had one called Danny's Diary, and we came time to reactivate the podcast because we took a sabbatical when we saw the transition of ownership of the magazine beginning to happen. And as we brought it back, I really wanted to brand it in a way that tied more closely to my fourth page column in the magazine, more so than me.
Makes sense.
Because I know at some point somebody else will be on the fourth page, but so this way, this will enable it to stay going. But it's going to be called The Fourth Page Podcast. It's audio, it's video, whatever other we can bring into it. And we just finished about a week or two ago recording the first 9 episodes. As a matter of fact, Arthur is one of the guests on there. And it's just a conversation. We just sat there. There were no real plans involved in the whole thing. We just sit there and talk. It bounces around a lot. My OCD sometimes really comes out on these things. So it's just fun watching me bounce around like a golf ball hit full swing in a tile bathroom.
It's fun.
But it's, we try to keep it entertaining. We try to keep it a little bit lighthearted, but we do dive into some deep subjects sometimes. So I'm looking forward to that debut. It's coming here within a couple weeks. So wherever you find your favorite podcast, and of course we'll talk about it on singingnews.com.
Awesome stuff. Danny Jones, our guest. Thanks again, Danny. We'll catch up with you later, my friend. All righty.
All right. Y'all
Thanks,
have
pal.
a great day.
All right. And welcome back to SGNP. Darren Sutherland, and as always, the co-host of gospel music. You know what, Arthur? I got to get done for season 3. I want to get us a new intro that mentions your name too. I mean, it ain't like, when we first did the intro years ago, people don't realize that I'd called you and said, hey man, we'll just try this a couple of weeks, see if it works out.
No.
And I'd use the same intro. And now you've been around here. And I thought about this after we interviewed Danny. And this is kind of neat. Okay. And I don't, and you ain't supposed to talk about yourself. And I'm not really talking about myself, but over the past 3 years, in numbers alone, if you look at the number of people, Arthur, what do you think the number of people that the Kingdom Heirs have sang to and you've talked to at Dollywood is?
Oh, good Lord. That'd be, I don't know.
I mean, arguably, because you guys sing 5 days a week, you in what, 3-4 shows a day?
Mm-hmm.
You sing in front of more gospel music fans or more music fans than any other group in gospel music, arguably. Is that fair to say?
Probably so.
Okay. Yeah. Danny's articles are read by more gospel music fans than any writer in the country. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Okay. And our podcast, we know it's been ranked by independent services, is the #1 gospel music podcast in the world. And we've had 250,000, whatever, downloads all the time of people listening to what we had. You know what? That's a pretty impressive quartet, maybe, I mean, pretty impressive quartet of gospel music fans. Maybe us three need to get together and learn to package it like Mr. Gaither. What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean,
why not?
Bill, help us out. You're a master promoter. I mean, we've talked to quite a few. I mean, it is funny when I thought about that. That just gives you a little bit to the genius of Bill Gaither, how he's been able to pull off what he's been able to pull off. And I don't know what got me on that tangent, but that's the truth. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. But Danny had some great words, great words.
That was a great interview. That's a lot of stuff. I didn't really, I mean, I knew part of that story, but I didn't know all of his history there. And I love hearing that history and hear how God works in people's lives. And it encourages me, because so many times we're in our own little bubble, and we think, well, is God really doing something in my life? And it takes looking on the outside and seeing somebody else where you can kind of reflect on yourself and you can say, okay, well, I can see God's hand here and I can see it there. And it really encourages you.
No doubt. I mean, Danny mentioned Karen Peck 3 or 4 times in the interview. Mm-hmm. And immediately when you were describing that, I thought of one of Karen's songs, and we'll close it out with the song. It says, God likes to work when nothing else will. Danny's story was he was working with the late Dave Wilcox and Eddie Crook and the guys. Great label. When you think about that label he was with, I mean, you think about those groups. I mean, how anointed was that? The McCameys, the Bishops, the Wilburns, Dixie Melody Boys, on and on and on. I mean, groups they were popping back in the day, Arthur, popping. Yeah. And then he goes over and Eldridge, another great Eldridge Fox story. Man, we need another Eldridge Fox in the year 2021. Boy, and by the way, it's good to see your buddy Greg Fox back playing the drums some on stage. Is it not?
Yeah. It is. It's great. Yeah.
I mean, good stuff. But I mean, but God's preparing some Eldridges, I believe. And
I believe so.
I believe he's got a David out there with a sling that's gonna come out there and it's gonna stun some giants, so to speak. Yep. And man, Danny, thanks for your time today. And we could have went a lot of different directions, but we went the direction that the Lord would have us to. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All righty, Arthur, as we always say at the end of the show, what's wrong with living right anyway?
Not one thing.
You've been listening to Southern Gospel News Podcast.
Looking for answers. You need a way out. You've been trapped in that triangle for full of sorrow and doubt. You saw a trickle of sunlight, but you found no escape. But just hold on to his promises. He said that he'd make a way. For he'll make a way in the middle of nowhere, when it seems no one really cares. He's there by your side, for he'll make a way when you feel safe to close in. Don't give up, don't give in. He'll make a way right on time. Standing at the Red Sea, there was no place to go, for Pharaoh's army was closing in. You see, they'd soon overthrow. Oh, but right out of nowhere came God's mighty strong hand.
SGNP is excited you chose to listen today. If you'd kindly leave a remark and rating in the podcast remarks section, we surely would appreciate it. Please share with a friend or family member. Look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and our new website, southerngospelnewspodcast.com. To advertise your products, services, concert event, or new project on SGNP and reach a 100% guaranteed number of people in your area, call Tim Newton at 770-874-3200 or email him today, tnewton@bgadgroup.com. Let us geo-target our ads for you, something radio nor magazine can do.
Hey, this is Darren Sutherland. Before I close, I want to thank our affiliates out there. WLJA in North Georgia, KWFC in Springdale, Arkansas. The new one, The Andrew Burnett Show, heard all across the country, and online, TheLightAtlanta.com, playing Southern gospel music online. We're adding affiliates every day. We're partnering with Ken and the folks over there at Gospel Music TV real soon. So we look forward to that partnership. If your gospel music entity would love to partner with SGMP, get a hold of us. It's real simple. Folks, here's the deal. We've reached out to literally every form of media in gospel music. If we've missed you, I'm sorry. But we've had great partnerships with folks like Paul Heil and others. If you haven't heard someone on the air, it's not because we hadn't reached out. We hope everyone is successful, no matter if they're a radio station, a magazine, a website, a group, whomever it is. God bless you, and let's make gospel music better than it was today, tomorrow. Easy enough?